Snap, metal screams, and a recovery strap lashes through the rain like a live wire. It misses Specialist Aaron Baines by inches and buries itself in a cedar trunk with a wet, splintering thud. The convoy clock keeps ticking anyway. Lieutenant Ethan Caldwell stands shin-deep in clay that grips like a fist, watching a 16-ton transport sink another inch with every useless spin. His engineers know the formulas, the ratings, the torque. None of it matters. Then an old veteran steps off the tree line and says, "You're pulling wrong." If tense, real-world problem-solving stories hit you hard, subscribe now. You'll want the next minutes, because the patent twist turns this mess into a lesson nobody forgets. Cold rain needles the back of Lieutenant Ethan Caldwell's neck and runs into his collar in steady rivulets. The training range road is barely a road. Rutted gravel drowned under a skin of brown water. Pine needles plastered to the surface like wet paper. Diesel fumes hang low. A winch motor whines, then coughs, the sound thin and sick. Caldwell wipes his face with a muddy glove. His jaw tightens, then releases, an involuntary tick he hates. He is 25, West Point clean-cut, a mechanical engineering degree folded neatly inside his confidence. He keeps staring at the transport's rear axle, now nearly kissing the mud. Every time the driver feathers the throttle, the tires polish the clay into a glossy, hopeless sheen. Sergeant Marisol Vega kneels by the recovery vehicle's panel, rainwater dripping off her helmet brim. "Sir," she calls, voice clipped. "The thermal's spiking. Solenoid housing's cooking." Caldwell steps closer, boots sinking with a slow, obscene slurp. He grimaces, nostrils flaring. "We don't have the luxury to baby the gear," he says, forcing steadiness. "The forward operating site needs those generators by over $400. We move this truck or we explain why we don't." Two contractors in clean rain shells stand back on the crown of the road. Calvin Rourke, logistics rep, and Darren Whitlock, site safety, both dry enough to look offended by the weather. Rourke checks his phone under his jacket like the mud is a personal insult. "This is exactly why we pay for modern recovery systems," he says loudly. "Not whatever this is." Whitlock snorts. Maybe the lieutenant can calculate the mud's feelings. A young specialist, Aaron Baines, grips the steel cable with shaking hands. His mouth twitches as he tries to hide it. Caldwell hears the faint rattle of Baines's teeth over the rain. "Sir," Baines says, "angle's bad. If it loads sideways again, rig it," Caldwell snaps. His eyes flick to the snapped strap lying half submerged, its frayed fibers splayed like pale tendons. A small brass tag on the strap flashes once as lightning shifts, stamped with a faded unit crest that doesn't match theirs. Vega rises, lips pressed thin. She glances at the tree line, then back at Caldwell. "We keep yanking," she says, "and we lose more than equipment." Caldwell's throat works as he swallows. The transport settles with a soft, final-sounding gulp, and from the tree line a lone figure starts walking down, slow, certain, like he already knows the ending. 2 hours before the generators are due on site, the range siren wails somewhere beyond the pines, thin, distant, almost mocking. The sky sits low and pewter-colored, and the rain changes texture, turning from needles to sheets that slap against helmets and the truck's hood. Mud sucks at every step with a wet, rhythmic pull, like the ground is breathing. The lone figure reaches the ditch line and stops where the clay turns black. He wears an old field jacket under a plastic poncho, the kind that crackles when he moves. A cane plants beside his boot. Not for weakness, more like punctuation. His face is ridged with age and windburn, and his eyes track the stuck transport the way a surgeon tracks a wound. He doesn't hurry. That alone irritates Lieutenant Ethan Caldwell. Caldwell raises his voice over the idling diesels. "Sir, you need to stay back. Restricted operation." The old man's mouth tightens for half a second, barely there, then relaxes. "Restricted doesn't mean smart," he says. His voice is low, rough, and it carries anyway. Sergeant Marisol Vega's gaze flicks to Caldwell, then back to the civilian. Her eyebrows lift a fraction, as if she's weighing whether this is nuisance or lifeline. Caldwell steps closer, boots making that obscene suction sound. He forces a professional tone. We have it handled. The old man looks at the rear tandem wheels, not at Caldwell. No, you don't. Calvin Rourke laughs from the road crown, dry sleeves folded tight across his chest. Great. Now we're taking advice from a hiker. Darren Whitlock adds, loud enough to be heard. Maybe he's got a spreadsheet in that cane. The old man's eyes slide up to them. A tiny flare of contempt pinches the corner of his mouth, then disappears. He returns to the truck like the contractors aren't worth the oxygen. Caldwell feels heat crawl up his neck. His jaw clenches, then releases. His tell. Specialist Baines, he calls. Get the snatch block. We double the line pull. Vega, anchor to that pine. Aaron Baines nods too fast. His lips press together, then part again, like he wants to argue but can't find the rank to do it. He drags the block through the mud, shoulders trembling under the weight. Vega wipes rain off her eyelashes with the back of her glove. Sir, she says, quieter now. The winch already smells like burnt insulation. We keep loading it. We don't have options, Caldwell cuts in. The old man taps his cane once into the mud. Not hard, just enough to make everyone notice. You keep pulling forward, he says, and you keep burying it. Caldwell turns on him. With respect, you don't know our equipment. I know mud, the old man replies, and I know suction. You're trying to tow a truck out of a vacuum. Rourke's phone flashlight flicks on as he records, grin sharp in the rain. This is going to be amazing. Caldwell points toward the road. Back up, now. If that line snaps again, it already snaps, the old man says, and his gaze drops to the frayed strap half submerged in the ditch. And it snaps because your angle is wrong. That lands. Caldwell's eyes narrow as he follows the cane tip. The line runs low, almost horizontal, straight into the ditch like a promise of failure. He hates that he sees it now. Baines hooks the snatch block with clumsy hands. His fingers shake, and his Adam's apple bobs as he swallows. He glances at the old man like he's asking permission without saying it. The old man steps closer, ignoring Caldwell's posture and the contractor's laughter. He crouches slowly, carefully, and scoops a fistful of clay. It stretches like taffy between his fingers. He lets it fall back with a thick slap. This isn't mud, he says. This is glue. Vega watches him with a tight, thoughtful expression. A muscle jumps once in her cheek. Caldwell forces the operation forward anyway. Driver, steady throttle, on my mark. The driver's face is a pale oval in the side mirror. He nods once, too rigid. Caldwell raises his arm. Pull. Diesel surges. The recovery vehicle strains. The cable sings. High, dangerous. The transport doesn't move. Its tires spin and shine the clay into a mirror. The ditch wall slumps inward like it's giving up. Then, another sound. Not a snap this time. A sharp metallic pop from the recovery vehicle's winch housing, followed by a thin stream of smoke that curls into the rain. Vega flinches, eyes widening. Her mouth opens, then shuts hard. Sir, winch is done. Caldwell's shoulders stiffen. For a beat, he just stares at the smoke like he can will it back inside the machine. His nostrils flare, his lips press into a line. Behind him, Rourke whistles. $1 million convoy, and we're dead because of dirt. Whitlock shakes his head. Should have called a crane. The old man doesn't gloat. He simply looks at Caldwell, and in that look there's something worse than smugness, certainty. You're out of pulls, he says. Now you either lift it, or you watch it disappear. Caldwell swallows, throat working. He looks down at the ditch, at the transport's axle nearly kissing the clay, at the brass tag on the ruined strap flashing that wrong unit crest when lightning stutters again. Vega leans in, voice low enough that only Caldwell hears. Sir, that crest, that tag doesn't match any of ours. Caldwell's eyes flick to it, then back to the old man. Who are you? He asks, and his voice cracks just slightly on the last word. The old man's grip tightens on the cane. His knuckles pale for a moment. Name's Walter Harlan, he says. And you're about to learn a trick your manuals forget. He turns his cane toward the tree line, toward a scatter of wind-fallen timber half hidden in wet ferns. What nobody here notices, Vega murmurs, staring where he points, is that he isn't guessing. He's remembering. 3 years earlier, 03:18 hours. The world sounds different. No rain, no diesel, just rotor thump and distant shouting that arrives late, as if the air itself hesitates. Walter Harlan stands on a riverbank in eastern Poland with a headlamp taped to his helmet and a radio pressed to his ear. The water below is black and fast, shouldering chunks of ice against a half-built pontoon like it wants to tear it apart. Floodlights from a temporary command post smear everything in harsh white, turning faces into masks and breath into smoke. A young captain points at the current, fingers shaking. Bridge sections keep drifting. We pin them. The anchors walk. Harlan doesn't argue. He watches. His eyes narrow a fraction. The skin beside them creases like folded paper. He crouches, palms the soil, then lifts his hand and rubs grit between thumb and forefinger. His jaw sets, one small click. Your anchors aren't failing, he says. Your angle is. The captain bristles. We're using the spec. Specs don't fight rivers, Harlan answers, voice flat. He looks past the captain to a line of vehicles staged on the bank. Heavy trucks, winches, chains, all the modern confidence in the world. Then he spots something older, a stack of timber cribbing, soaked and ignored, stamped with faded depot ink. He walks to it and taps one beam with his knuckles. The sound is solid, honest. A specialist jogs up, eyes wide. Sir, medevac birds inbound. We have civilians on the far side. Flood took their road. Harlan's mouth tightens, then softens. He turns back to the river and speaks like he's calling cadence. We don't pull against suction and current. We lift, we climb, we make the machine walk. The captain stares. Walk? Harlan points to a stranded cargo truck half submerged near the far bank, its rear wheels spinning uselessly on slick stones. That driver keeps throttling. He digs himself into a grave. You strap a beam to the wheel, give it a leg, and the wheel has to rise. Same principle as an unditching beam. Old as mud. The captain hesitates, then nods once, sharp, reluctant. Do it. Men move, chains clatter, sledgehammers ring. Harlan's hands stay steady as he threads a binder through a rim, cinching timber tight to rubber until it becomes one ugly, improvised limb. His expression never turns heroic. It turns focused. A muscle jumps once in his cheek when the river slaps the pontoon hard enough to shutter the bank. Driver! Harlan shouts. Low range, lock it, steady throttle. You spin, you die. The driver's face is a pale blur behind wet glass. He nods. Harlan raises his arm and drops it. The wheel turns. The timber rotates down, bites rock, and the truck lurches upward like something waking from a nightmare. For a breath it teeters, then climbs. The crowd on the bank releases one collective exhale. The captain's lips part in disbelief. Harlan doesn't smile. He just watches the contact point, the angle, the way physics finally obeys when you stop insulting it. Minutes later, the pontoon sections slide into place, not because the river becomes kind, but because Harlan changes the geometry. Timber cribbing, chained and wedged, forcing the load to rise instead of drag. When the first vehicle rolls across, the captain turns to him, rainless eyes shining under floodlight. Where do you learn that? The captain asks. Harlan's gaze drops to his left wrist. No watch, just a faint pale band where one usually sits. He flexes his fingers once, slow. You learn it when you can't afford to wait, he says. When the ground wants to swallow you, and someone's life depends on you not letting it. Back in the present, the training range rain hammers Walter Harlan's poncho and makes it shine like oilcloth. Lieutenant Ethan Caldwell watches him differently now, not because he knows the Poland story, but because Harlan's posture carries it. The man doesn't step like a tourist. He steps like someone who has counted minutes in blood. Sergeant Marisol Vega's eyes stay on the cane, on the hands, on the way Harlan keeps glancing at the transport's rear axle, as if he's already seeing the sequence of movements. Her lips press together. Then she releases them, a tiny tell of decision. Caldwell gestures toward the windfall in timber. "You're saying we strap logs to the wheels?" Harlan nods once. 2 logs, 2 chains, 2 binders. Enough clearance to rotate 3 feet. That's all. Calvin Rourke scoffs from the road crown, still filming. "This is insane. We're going to destroy a government asset with lumber." Harlan finally looks at him fully. His eyes are pale and steady. "You already destroy it," he says, "just slower." Caldwell's throat tightens. He stares at the brass tag on the snapped strap, the wrong unit crest catching lightning like a wink from a ghost. He looks back to Harlan. "That crest," he says carefully. "Where have you seen it?" For the first time, Harlan's composure flickers. His fingers tighten around the cane, the knuckles blanch, then ease. "I see it," he answers, "in places people pretend don't exist." Vega's brows lift a millimeter. "Sir," she murmurs to Caldwell, "that's not a random tag." Harlan points into the tree line again. "Get the logs," he says. "And while you do, ask yourself why that strap carries a crest from a unit that isn't on this range manifest." Caldwell's jaw clenches, releases. He nods once, hard. "Baines, 2 logs. Now. Vega. Chains and binders." Baines swallows, then moves, fast, relieved to have something to do. The rain keeps falling, the transport keeps settling, and Harlan watches the mud like it's an old enemy he recognizes by smell. In moments, Caldwell realizes the recovery isn't the only thing about to surface. Block 5. Revelation, 693 words. The first log comes out of the tree line dragging a tail of wet fern and black needles. Specialist Aaron Baines and another engineer grunt in sync, boots sliding, shoulders bowed under the weight. The pine is fresh split where it fell, sap already bleeding in thin amber lines that shine against the rain. Chains clink from Sergeant Marisol Vega's hands like impatient teeth. Lieutenant Ethan Caldwell stands at the ditch edge and feels the clock in his ribs. 1 hour and 40 minutes until 0400. The generators sit in the transport like dead cargo. The contractors hover on the road crown like spectators at a wreck. Walter Harlan steps closer to the rear tandem wheels. He doesn't rush. His mouth presses into a narrow line, then loosens. He taps the tire sidewall once with his cane, soft, precise, like he's testing a drum. "Perpendicular," he says, "across the tread. Not pretty, not negotiable." Baines lifts the log. His forearms tremble. His lips pinch tight. Then he exhales through his nose, steadying himself. Vega crouches in the mud and threads a chain through the rim with hands that don't fumble. Her jaw flexes once. Caldwell notices the way she watches Harlan's fingers, not his face, like she's reading technique. Calvin Rourke's phone light flares brighter as he leans forward. "This is going to end in an investigation," he says, voice slick with certainty. Darren Whitlock chuckles. "Or a viral clip." Harlan doesn't look up. "You boys ever watch a wheel climb?" he asks, almost conversational. Caldwell's throat tightens. "We do this your way," he says, "and we don't tear brake lines?" "Steady throttle," Harlan replies. "Low range, locks on, no hero moves." His eyes flick to Caldwell, pale and flat. "If your driver panics, you all duck." That lands like a cold coin in Caldwell's stomach. They cinch the first binder. The ratchet handle squeals under strain. The chain bites into wet bark. The log sits across the tire like a crude crossbar, ugly and confident. When they mount the second log on the opposite wheel, the transport looks wrong. $500,000 of machine wearing a primitive brace. Caldwell climbs onto the side step, leans into the open cab window and meets the driver's eyes in the mirror. The driver's pupils look too wide. His tongue wets his lip once, quick. "Low range," Caldwell says. "All locks." "Yes, sir. Steady throttle. You creep." The driver nods again, one sharp dip, as if nodding makes it true. Caldwell drops back into the mud. His boot sinks and releases with a loud slurp. Harlan positions himself 10 feet off the wheel arc, cane planted, body angled away like he's done this around worse things than chains. Vega raises her voice. Clear the line. Nobody in the bite. Baines backs up, shoulders hunched, hands open as if the chain might leap at him. His face twitches, fear trying to hide behind duty. Harlan lifts his cane. On my signal, he calls, not loud, just final. The rain hammers the poncho, and for a second the world narrows to the rear wheel, the chain, the log, the mud. Harlan drops the cane. Go! The engine deepens. The wheel turns. Clunk, chain tension takes up slack. Crunch, the log rotates down and hits the clay with a sound like a shovel striking wet concrete. The whole truck shudders. The chassis flexes. Caldwell's breath catches high in his chest. Vega's eyes widen a fraction. Her nostrils flare, then settle. The tire can't slip. It tries. The mud refuses. The log refuses harder. And then the impossible becomes mechanical. The rear end rises, slow, stubborn, undeniable, lifting out of the suction like a boot pulled from a swamp. Clay peels away in thick sheets. The transport climbs its own makeshift leg, and the ditch wall collapses behind it with a wet, defeated sigh. Steady, Harlan says, palm down, controlling the air. Steady. The driver obeys. The truck inches forward. The front wheels find the gravel crown and grab like they've been waiting for permission. The log continues rotating under the tire, bridging the worst of the hole. Harlan's head tilts slightly, calculating clearance. His lips purse, then part. Stop, he barks. Brakes bite. The truck halts with the logs just shy of the fender line, close enough to feel the threat, far enough to survive it. Silence drops hard. Even the contractors stop talking. The transport sits on solid shoulder now, dripping brown water in slow ropes. Steam curls from hot metal into cold rain. The ditch looks smaller, embarrassed. Baines lets out a laugh that cracks halfway into a cough. His shoulders shake once. It walked, he says, voice thin with disbelief. It actually walked. Vega steps closer to inspect the brake lines and suspension. Her fingers trace a hose, careful. She nods once, tight. No damage. Caldwell feels something in his chest unclench. He turns toward Harlan, ready to speak, ready to offer something like respect. And that's when the sound changes. Not diesel, not rain. A low, approaching chop of rotors rolls over the trees, growing fast, flattening the pine branches in a ripple. The contractor's heads snap up. Rourke's phone swings toward the sky. A matte black helicopter noses over the tree line and hovers above the road. Downdraft turning rain into sideways needles. Gravel skitters. Hats jerk. Everyone throws an arm up against the wind. The helicopter settles into a tight landing on the road crown like it owns the place. The side door slides open. A man in a dark jacket steps out, posture rigid, and flashes a badge too quickly to read. He strides straight toward the ditch, eyes locked on Walter Harlan like he's confirming a face from a file. Then the man stops in front of Caldwell and says, "Over the rotor wash." "Lieutenant Ethan Caldwell, who authorized you to use a recovery strap stamped with the 3rd Expeditionary Sustainment crest?" Caldwell's stomach drops. He looks at the brass tag again, now gleaming like evidence. Harlan's expression doesn't change, except for a tiny tightening at the corners of his eyes, like old scars remembering pressure. The man with the badge turns slightly, voice colder. "And why is Walter Harlan, listed as deceased, standing on my range?" Rotor wash batters the road into a living thing. Rain stings sideways. Gravel skates across the crown and ticks off helmets like thrown nails. Lieutenant Ethan Caldwell keeps one hand up to shield his eyes, the other hanging uselessly at his side, fingers flexing once, open, close, like they're trying to find a tool that isn't there. The man with the badge steps closer. He is mid-40s, close shave, eyes that don't blink often. His jacket beads water and still looks expensive. "Special Agent Raymond Sutter, Army CID, he says, voice flat, perfectly audible between rotor pulses. He holds the badge steady now, letting it sit in the air like a weight. Sergeant Marisol Vega shifts her stance without thinking, half a step in front of her soldiers. Her jaw sets, then eases. Specialist Aaron Baines swallows hard. His throat bobs, and his hands hover near his vest straps like he wants to anchor himself to something solid. Sutter points not at Caldwell but at the frayed strap lying in the ditch, its brass tag glinting with that wrong crest. "That strap is restricted inventory," he says. "It doesn't belong on this range." Caldwell's mouth goes dry. He forces words through it anyway. "We pulled it from the recovery cage, sir. It was staged with the rest of the gear." "Who staged it?" Sutter asks. Caldwell glances toward the contractors on the road crown. Calvin Rourke's recording light is still on, but his grin is gone. His lips press thin, and a muscle jumps near his cheekbone. Darren Whitlock's eyes flick away, fast, as if the trees suddenly become interesting. Walter Harlan stands 10 feet off the ditch, cane planted, poncho snapping like a flag. He doesn't look surprised. His nostrils flare once, then settle. "You're late," Harlan says. Sutter's gaze locks onto him. "You're not supposed to exist." "I exist," Harlan replies. "People just file me where it's convenient." The helicopter's rotors spool down a fraction, dropping the pitch. The world feels heavier without the constant roar. Rain resumes its normal direction, straight down, cold and patient. In moments, a second figure steps out of the helicopter. Colonel Patricia Langford, range commander. Rain dark hair pulled tight, uniform immaculate in a way that looks almost aggressive. She walks with purpose, boots finding traction where everyone else slips, and stops beside Sutter without looking at him for permission. Her eyes sweep the scene, the freed transport, the logs chained to the wheels, the mudslick soldiers, the contractors hovering like oil on water. Then her gaze lands on Harlan. Something in her face tightens, recognition restrained by discipline. Her lips part, then close again. "Walter," she says quietly. Harlan's eyes soften for half a second. A tiny crease appears between his brows, then smooths. "Colonel." Caldwell's heart kicks hard. He looks from Langford to Harlan, trying to assemble a picture that won't hold still. Vega notices his confusion. She doesn't explain. She just watches Langford the way you watch a door you expect to open. Langford steps closer to Caldwell. "Lieutenant," she says, "report." Caldwell straightens, mud sucking at his boots as if it resents the posture. "Transport is recovered, ma'am. Winch failed. Strap snapped earlier. Civilian." He catches himself. Mr. Harlan advised an unditching method. No damage to vehicle. Generators remain intact. Langford's eyes flick to the ditch, to the strap tag, to the logs. "And you used equipment with a crest that isn't yours." "Yes, ma'am," Caldwell admits. His jaw clenches, releases. "I didn't know." Sutter cuts in. "That crest belongs to the 3rd Expeditionary Sustainment Element. 2 months ago, a pallet of recovery gear goes missing off a depot manifest. The same week, a civilian contractor network pops up selling surplus straps online." His eyes slide to Rourke. Funny coincidence. Rourke lifts both hands, palms out, rainwater streaming off his cuffs. His smile tries to return and fails halfway. "Hold on, I'm logistics. I don't procure military gear. I coordinate delivery schedules." Whitlock clears his throat, too loud. "This is outside my scope. I do safety compliance." Vega's mouth tightens. She looks at Baines, then back at the contractors. Her nostrils flare once, anger contained. Langford turns to Sutter. "You're telling me my range is being used as a laundering point?" Sutter nods. "And I'm telling you Harlan's name appears in the same file, as deceased. Yet here he is." Harlan shifts his cane to his left hand. His right hand flexes once, slow, as if it remembers weight. "You marked me dead because it makes your paperwork clean," he says. "But you keep using the things I build, and you keep losing them." Caldwell's eyes dart to the strap again. The brass tag doesn't just look wrong now, it looks deliberate. Langford's voice drops. "Walter, why are you here?" Harlan's gaze moves past her, into the tree line, then back to the contractors. "Because I walk this trail," he says. "And because I recognize that crest on that tag. I recognize the cut pattern on the webbing, too. That strap isn't surplus. It's repurposed." Sutter leans in. "From where?" Harlan's mouth compresses, his eyes narrow a fraction. From a unit that doesn't want questions, he says. And from a supply chain that thinks nobody notices small theft when the mud is loud. Rourke's phone lowers an inch. His fingers tremble, barely, but it's there. This is ridiculous, he says, voice rising. You can't accuse me because some old guy likes war stories. Langford turns on him so fast the air seems to snap. Stop talking, she says, not loud, final. Rourke freezes. His Adam's apple jumps. Whitlock's shoulders hunch, then square up like he's trying to look innocent by force. Sutter gestures to two MPs who appear from the helicopter's far side, moving with practiced economy. Calvin Rourke, Sutter says, you're going to hand over your phone. Now. Rourke laughs once. High, brittle. You don't have... One, Sutter says, counting softly. Rourke's lips peel back, showing teeth. His eyes flick to Whitlock, pleading without words. Two. Rourke's hand shakes as he passes the phone over. The MP takes it like evidence because it is. Vega exhales through her nose, slow. Baines's shoulders drop a fraction, relief mixing with fear. Caldwell watches it all and feels his understanding shift under his feet. The stuck truck is never the real problem. It's the people who benefit from it staying stuck. Langford steps toward Harlan again. Her expression hardens into something like respect. You save my convoy, she says. You expose a theft chain on my range, and you do it while officially dead. Harlan's eyes hold hers. I don't do it for credit, he says. I do it because young soldiers keep paying for old greed. Langford nods once, sharp. Then she pivots to Caldwell. Lieutenant, she says, form your engineers up. Caldwell turns, voice steadier than it feels. Vega, Baines, on me. They line up on the gravel shoulder, rain running off helmets, mud clinging to knees and gloves. The helicopter sits behind them like a black witness. Langford steps in front of the formation. Today, she says, you watch a problem get solved without ego. You also watch accountability arrive by air. Her eyes flick to Harlan. Mr. Harlan, step forward. Harlan moves one pace. His posture is straight despite the cane. A faint tremor touches his fingers, then stills. Langford raises her hand in a crisp salute. Caldwell's breath catches. Vega's eyes widen a fraction. Baines's lips part, then press together as if he's holding in a sound. Harlan hesitates, just a beat, then returns the salute, slower, practiced, unbreakable. Keep them moving, he says, voice low, meant for Caldwell as much as anyone, and teach your people to check the tags. Caldwell nods, throat tight. Yes, sir. Sutter watches from the side, already speaking into a radio, already turning the contractors into a case file with names and dates. Rourke's face drains of color. Whitlock stares at the ground like it might open and take him. The convoy clock keeps ticking, but now it ticks for the right reasons. And as the generators finally roll toward the FOB, Caldwell realizes the real lesson isn't the log and chain trick. It's who benefits when you stay buried. A week later, the range road sits dry and cracked under a thin winter sun. Wind combs through the pines and carries the clean click of a flag line. Walter Harlan stands at the same ditch, cane planted, watching a new culvert pipe shine where the mud used to trap steel. His mouth tightens, then eases. He exhales once, slow, like he finally trusts the ground again. Caldwell's voice still flashes in his head. Rig it. And Rourke's brittle laugh right before it dies. Now Caldwell kneels beside a gear rack, running gloved fingers over brass tags, reading crests like they matter. Vega watches him, chin lifted, a faint nod of approval. People see mud and call it bad luck, but luck doesn't stamp unit crests, and it doesn't profit from panic. Thanks for watching. Subscribe for more true lessons where experience beats ego.